The most accurate description of 2026 was written by a man who died in 1936. That was 90 years ago. He didn't have internet, no computers, and no algorithms. But Oswald Spengler saw it coming. And he described it in his book, The Decline of the West. And nobody wanted to hear it. Today we hear it everywhere. AI is disrupting everything. And that's not even wrong, but it is the wrong question. AI is just completing something that started over 100 years ago. And once you understand what Spengler actually said, the current mood and unease suddenly makes sense. And it will create space for something more positive to become possible. So what did he actually say? Spengler made a distinction that I think is one of the most useful ideas I've come across. He separated two things that we usually treat as the same: culture and civilization. Culture for him is something alive. It grows from the ground up. It has a soul. It's the myth and the stories and the symbols. It's embodied experience and things that can't be measured or optimized. A living culture produces art that actually means something. Philosophy that changes how you live. And rituals that connect you to something larger than your career or your KPIs. It is something organic, something mythic, and it's full of depth and contradiction. Civilization is only what comes after. A civilization usually tries to optimize everything. And that has consequences. Efficiency replaces creation, money replaces value, and function replaces meaning. The human being stops being a person and starts being a unit of output. The interesting thing is, Spengler didn't see this as a catastrophe or a moral failure. He simply called it a season. He says also cultures move through spring, summer, autumn, and winter, just like every living organism. And that's the life cycle of a civilization. And it is a biological necessity. And we are right now, as he believed, and you probably guessed it already, deep in winter. Does that description feel familiar to you? And here is where it gets relevant for right now. So Spengler called the Western soul Faustian. From Goethe's Faust, the man who sold his soul for knowledge and power. And this is our longing. It's the infinite striving, the hunger to calculate everything, to conquer space, time, nature, and ultimately the human mind itself. He wrote that in 1918, and he had never heard of an algorithm. But what he described is exactly what an algorithm does. It takes the human behavior, messy, contradictory, deep, and reduces it to a pattern, something to be predicted, to be optimized and monetized. AI is not the disease. Actually, AI is the most precise symptom we have ever produced as a civilization that has been moving in this direction for a very long time. A machine that thinks, writes, and decides. And it needs no body, it has no worries, no dreams, and no shadow. But the question that interests me more is not whether AI is good or bad. The important question is, what happens when we, as persons, as individuals, start to measure ourselves against it? Do we start to treat our own slowness, our contradictions, our own depth as bugs to be fixed? That's the actual problem. Not the technology, the orientation. I want to stop here for a second and make a step back. Think about the last time you did something that had no measurable output. No results, no optimization, no signal or message to send to anyone. Something you did purely because it came from inside you. How long ago was that? And take a moment with this question. Because I believe your answer tells you more about where you are in Spengler's winter than anything I could say. Now, let me be honest about what I think are Spengler's limits. He was a diagnostician. He described our culture. And I think it's one of the best descriptions I've ever read. But he was not a physician. He saw the decline with the precision of a pathologist and offered no exit. Because he believed none existed. The winter comes, you endure it, and that's it. I believe he was right about the diagnosis. I do not believe he was right about the impossibility of a response. And I have proof that this is possible, because it's something I have tested. Not in theory, in practice. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I consciously search moments where I escape this situation. For example, I do a long fast at least once a year. 10, 12, sometimes 14 days, without food, water only. I started that 6 to 7 years ago, mainly for health reasons. But over time, something shifted for me. I mean, the health benefits are still there, and that's a side effect I'm really grateful for. But that's not why I do it anymore. It's something else. When I'm fasting, something changes. From the first night, my dreams become much more vivid, more structured, and I remember them better and more clearly. And they're not just strange images, they're actual storylines. They're connected and building on each other night after night. I've been keeping a dream journal now for more than 8 years. Usually, I write maybe half a page if I'm lucky. But during the fast, I was writing 2-3 pages every morning. The material was just there. It was waiting in my unconscious to be released. Physiologically, here is what happens, and why it matters for the inner work. The first 3 days are uncomfortable. I have low energy, I have headaches, and I'm irritable. This is because the body is burning through the glycogen reserves, shutting down the digestion, and preparing for a different mode. Then, around day 3 or 4, it switches into ketosis. That means the body burns fat instead of carbohydrates. And from there, something opens up. The mental noise quiets. But then there's even another transition. By day 7 or 8, I'm getting into kind of a meditative state. And this state is actually much better than anything I've achieved in any of my active meditation sessions. So why does this matter? Carl Jung said dreams are the language of the unconscious. Our shadow doesn't speak in arguments. It speaks in symbols and in images that don't make rational sense until you sit with them long enough. Now, the problem with shadow work in normal life is the noise. You wake up, the day starts immediately, and whatever the dream was trying to tell you is gone within minutes. The fast removes that interference layer. Not completely, but enough. I also practiced active imagination during those 12 days. This is also a Jungian technique. You sit down, close your eyes, and consciously invite the figures from your unconscious into a dialogue. You speak the invitation, you wait, and you write down what comes. Sometimes comes nothing, which is also okay. And it may sound strange now until you try it. So during the fast, with that increased level of clarity, it worked in a way it rarely does in ordinary life. And I'm still working with the material from my last fast, which was in November, so roughly 6 months ago. I collected 15 or 20 dreams with dense symbolism and weeks of active imagination sessions. And I'm not complaining about that. I think that's great, and that's the goal of it. Then around day 6 or 7, I stopped managing the fast, and I started surrendering to it. So what's the difference? Managing means you're still negotiating. You're counting the days, and you're calculating how much is left. Surrendering means you stop negotiating. You accept the situation completely, and then, this is the Nietzschean move, you use it. That's amor fati. Not just tolerating what is, but finding the opportunity inside it. And from that point, the remaining days were truly easy. Not comfortable, but easy. And that distinction is necessary. One more thing. I normally use food to procrastinate. If I have an important task that I don't feel like doing, I go to the fridge. But during a fast, that escape route is closed. The discomfort just stays there. And after a few days, you stop running from it. And that is, on an individual level, a small example of what Spengler's winter is asking on a civilizational scale. Our comfortable exits are closing. The question is, what do you do when they are gone? Now, in contrast to Spengler, I want to offer a solution. And today I want to share 3 practices how we can not only endure, but to strive in the winter. But before we get there, just a moment of honesty. Somewhere in what I've described, maybe the hollowness, the optimization, the machine that needs no body, no wounds, no shadow, something probably landed for you. Not as a new idea, as a recognition. Notice what that is. Don't analyze it, don't fix it, just notice what specifically felt familiar. Because that thing, whatever just came up, that is your entry point. There are no frameworks or walkthroughs for that. It all starts from what you notice in your body. And this is what the small reset is built around. It's not a method, it's a direction. Okay, 3 orientations as a starting point. A serious response to a serious moment. The first one is shadow work. That's Jung's individuation in practice. The parts of yourself you've rejected, they don't disappear. They accumulate. And they continue to run the things from the underground. The midlife professional who has optimized everything externally is often sitting on decades of avoided shadow material. But don't worry, your entry point is not a 12-day fast. It is simpler. It is becoming more conscious about your unconscious. I started 8 years ago keeping my dream journal. And that's not a romantic or esoteric discipline. This is actually the best way to listen to what the unconscious produces before we start the day and our ego or persona take over again. That practice made everything the fast revealed possible. Start there. The second idea is physical challenge. That's Nietzsche's self-overcoming made literal. And I'm not talking about the gym. That is maintenance. I'm talking about something that truly feels uncomfortable. Not as a metaphor, as a physical fact. Because your body knows things that the mind avoids. And choosing difficulty in a world optimized for comfort is actually one of the most human acts available right now. Again, it doesn't have to be a 12-day fast, but it has to be real for you. Something that sends a signal to stop and asks you to continue anyway. That is where the will gets redirected inward. And that's where Spengler's winter finds its answer. The third idea is value creation. That's Nietzsche's become who you are, lived out. One of the reasons for the decline of the West is that we killed our God. And with that, an established value system. So value creation is not just a reflection. And values don't emerge from assessment tools. They emerge from what you choose to do when no one is watching and nothing external is rewarding you for it. Stop inheriting values from the market, from your industry, or from your family's expectations. You have to start building your own. And you find them within you. So Spengler saw the winter coming. And he was right. But the point is, winter is not the end of the story. It's the season that asks you to go inward. To do the work that summer made easy to avoid. Shadow work, physical challenge, and value creation. So these are not self-help techniques. They are orientations toward what makes you irreplaceably human in a moment that is trying to make that irrelevant. That's what the small reset is about. And if you want to know where you're standing in this process, I've built something specific for that. It's called the Jungian archetype test. It takes 10 minutes. It doesn't tell you what personality type you are. It shows you which part of your individuation process you're currently in, and what hidden parts are driving your decisions. And one last concrete thing for tonight. Doesn't require journaling, no meditation, and it's nothing esoteric. Open your notes app and write one sentence. The thing you keep almost thinking about, but something is redirecting you away from it. And don't tell me you don't have something like that. We all have. Don't elaborate, just name it. That's the beginning of shadow work. Everything else builds from there.